Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Haverhill's 2019 Mayoral Debate, sponsored by Welcome to Haverhill and hosted by HC Media, also known as Haverhill Community Television, as we are broadcasting live on channels 9 and 22, as well as live streaming on HC Media's webpage. My name is Frank Novak. I'll be your moderator for this evening. We are very pleased to introduce our panelists who will be posing questions to our candidates this evening. To my left, Ms. Linda Brown, who is the director of Haverhill's Bright Side and an administrator on Welcome to Haverhill. Next, we have Mr. Dugan Sherwood, who is president of the Greater Haverhill Chamber of Commerce. Next, we have Ms. Hartel Johnson of Haverhill, who is the state director of the League of Women Voters. I would like to recognize the members of the press to whom you'll all be able to turn tomorrow and to get the backstory on tonight's debate. And that's Mr. Paul Tennant of the Eagle Tribune and Allison Corino of WHAV Radio News. And the big reason we are all here this evening are the candidates, incumbent Mayor James J. Fiorentini and his challenger, Police Patrolman Daniel Trokey. And now the rules of tonight's mayoral debate. While applause may come naturally to you as showing your approval, we ask that you not applaud during the debate, as this will take time away from the candidates' answers. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to introduce themselves to our studio and broadcast audience. Panelists will have 3 to 4 questions each to ask candidates depending upon time. Candidates will have 2 minutes to answer and 30 seconds for rebuttal if requested. Candidates will also have an opportunity to have 30 seconds to ask the opposing candidate a question, who will then have 2 minutes to respond. There will be no rebuttal. If time permits, there will be 2 questions from the audience that I will be permitted to ask, with each candidate having 2 minutes to answer and 30 seconds for a rebuttal, if requested. Each candidate will then have 1 minute for a closing statement. Additionally, to keep candidates on topic and answer the questions asked, the HC Media crew will endeavor to show the question asked at the bottom of the viewer's TV screen. And now, as we start, the first question goes to the candidate that appears first on the ballot, and that question will come from Ms. Linda Brown. Oh, I'm sorry, pardon me. We're looking at opening statements from the candidates, and that will be, the first one will come from Mayor James J. Fiorentini. I apologize, go ahead.
Thank you very much. My name is Jim Fiorentini, and I'm running for re-election because for all the great progress we've made, we're just getting started. Working together, we've gone from the largest budget debt in the history of the state of Massachusetts to the largest budget surplus in our history. We've gone from a downtown of boarded up shoe factories to over $250 million in new investment. We've gone from a high school slated to be unaccredited to a renovated high school and a brand new hunking school. It's all great, but I tell you tonight, we're just getting started. I'm running to keep improving education. We built a new hunking school. Our MCAS scores are up, our class size is down, and now for the first time we have free all-day kindergarten. But we're just getting started. It's time to build a new or renovated hunking Constantino school within the budget. I'm running to continue to keep you safe. Over the past 5 years, we've added over 20 police officers, brought in the nationally recognized UTEC program to help with gangs. FBI statistics tell us that crime is down, but we're just getting started, and we know there's more to do. We need to hire certified part-time officers, put foot patrols back in the neighborhoods. And I'm running to keep our city affordable. I'm running to keep this as a city where young families can afford to pay their mortgage, their rent, and their taxes. We can do all of these things if we put aside the negativity, take advantage of new laws to bring in new business and tax dollars. I'll need all of my years of experience and education to accomplish this, but working together with all of you, we can do it. It's been the greatest honor in my life to have been your mayor for the past 16 years. Tonight, I humbly ask for your vote because, folks, we're just getting started. Thank you so much.
Okay. We'll ask you to hold your applause. Thank you. Mr. Trokey.
Thank you, everybody, for showing up and attending, and thank the panel for having us. My name is Dan Trokey. I'm a police officer here in Haverhill. I've been a veteran police officer for the past 12 years. I spent the majority of my time in the Aiken neighborhood in the Mount Washington district. I know about the crime in the city and the improvements that we can make that haven't been done. I'm married with 2 beautiful children, and my children just began the Haverhill public school system. My family has dedicated their lives to serving this city. My father was an administrator of the Mayoral nursing home, and my brother's a firefighter here in Haverhill. The one thing I'm not is I'm not a politician. I'm a police officer, and I'm a concerned parent. Like many of you here today, I'm concerned about the understaffed police department and the fire department. I'm worried about the underfunded schools. I'm worried about our neglected infrastructure over the past 16 years. I'll work with the City Council and the school committee to make improvements in these areas. Our city employees are the backbone of our city. I'm honored to have the endorsement of the Haverhill Police Department, the Haverhill Fire Department, the Professional Firefighters of Massachusetts, and the Teamsters Local 170. I have the support of almost every city union, and there's a reason for it. And I'm going to work with them and give them the support they need to do the job. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Trokey. And now we will have our first question from Ms. Linda Brown.
And I just want to preface before I start asking the questions that these questions were all submitted by residents. So we really see what they are on their minds. The first question will be going to the Mayor Fiorentini. Hello. Mayor Fiorentini, there are lots of questions surrounding the status of the Haverhill, the Hale debt. Has it been paid for? Is there still a balance? How much is of balance is there? So I'd like to ask you, is there a balance?
Yes.
How much is that balance? Will it detract from our annual budget?
Yes.
And how much longer can we pay that down?
Well, the Hale debt consisted originally of 5 different parts. It was the largest municipal debt in the history of Massachusetts, and getting us through this has been an incredibly difficult task. It took about $8 to $10 million a year out of our budget. The Hale debt consisted of a loan for the equipment. That's been paid off. It consisted of what was originally a $40 million deficit for running the hospital itself. It consisted of approximately a $32 million deficit for the building itself. And it also consists of the health care and pensions unfunded for the employees who were there. By 2023 and then 2024, the remaining parts of the debt itself, the debt on the building and the operating debt will be paid off. I propose using that money to build a new Constantino school within the budget, and hopefully another school, either the Tilton or the J.G. Whittier School. The health care and pensions will not be paid off for any time in the near future, so it'll continue to be a difficulty for us. I'm fortunate that I was able to persuade the state this wasn't just our problem, this was a state problem, and to get state contribution, and that's helped us over the years. It helped us get through this. We used the $2.4 million that Representative Dempsey worked with me to get in order to pay the $2.1 million that was the operating debt every year. But we still had the debt on the building and all of the other things. So I hope that answers your question. It's been an albatross, but we're getting through it.
Do you have a rebuttal, Dan, to anything that the mayor said? Would you like to have a rebuttal?
No,
to
no
anything?
rebuttal on that.
Okay, just want to make sure.
Okay. We'll go on to the next question. That'll be from Mr. Dugan Sherwood.
Okay, Mr. Trokey. Across all sectors, the demographic makeup of Gateway City leaders does not reflect the changing demographics of Gateway City residents. This is very much true for Haverhill. This is meaningful for a number of reasons, and the data is clear. Nationwide, cities that develop strategies that support inclusivity economically outpace cities that do not. How would you describe the state of Haverhill from an inclusivity point of view, and how does inclusion factor into your thinking about making Haverhill a more competitive city for growth?
When we're talking about growth, I mean, when I think about growing the city, and it may not even answer the question, but when I'm thinking about growing the city, I'm thinking about what do we need to do to keep our schools, our city safe. Before we do anything, I feel that we need to take care of our schools, give our children the best education possible, and I think that we need to, like I said, keep our schools, the streets safe. Without that, it's hard to bring in other businesses. My focus right now is on education and public safety, and that's it for right now. I'm sorry.
Okay. Mr. Fiorentini, would you like to?
Agreement here that education and public safety have to be our top priorities. But your question was about diversity, and the answer is we're doing better, but there's more to do. One of the ways to give our new minorities in town a voice and give all people in all districts of the city a voice is to go to ward councilors. I've endorsed that in my opening statement. I endorse it here tonight. That's the only way to give every resident in every area of the city someone they can contact for better service. I've made it a point to put minorities in every different area of the city. When I took office, there was not a single bilingual person in City Hall. I put bilingual people, some of them are here tonight, to support me in every area of government, on boards, but we have more to do with minorities, with our African American community, with our Latino community. We have to keep trying. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Hartel-Johnson.
Okay, this question is going to go to Mr. Jim Fiorentini. And again, just to remind the audience and to remind everyone that these questions are from the citizens of Haverhill. Mr. Fiorentini, in the next decade, how can Haverhill become a city where biotech and other knowledge-based companies seek to relocate and employ middle-class professional workers? If you can be specific and outline your vision, thank you.
Thank you so much. This is our opportunity. 16 years ago, I stood before all of you, not in this building wasn't here then, and said we had a great opportunity with new federal brownfields laws in order to redevelop our downtown. My plan worked. Tonight, I tell you that we have another great opportunity, and that's with the new federal opportunity zones and the state CDIP zones, in HDIP zones, in order to bring in high-tech business and redevelop our city. That's what my master plan proposal is all about. How can we redevelop our city, grow our tax base so I can keep your tax rate at a reasonable level, and bring in more commercial taxes in order to be able to do the things that all of us want to do. Add more police officers, improve our schools, and keep our city at a reasonable tax rate. Thank you for asking.
Mr. Trocchi, would you like to respond to that?
I think the question was how do we get the middle-class workers into there? Was that the question?
Could you restate that, Ms. Johnson?
How can Haverhill become a city where biotech and other knowledge-based companies seek to relocate and employ middle-class professional workers?
Yeah, I think we have some great resources here with the train station downtown. That's our goal for, I think, the housing down here is to get middle-class workers. I think as far as bringing the businesses here, there are programs that the mayor mentioned that we can use. But again, I mean, to bring any kind of business down here, I think we have to clean up our streets and make it a place that people want to come here. They want to bring their families and to work down here, and we have to make our streets safer.
Thank you. And now we go to Linda Brown.
Might as well stay seated, Officer Trocchi, it's coming back to you. Okay, we know Haverhill's a fairly large, city in this area with well over 62,000 residents. And there are many departments that come with that have to be managed and budgeted for. So what would be your experience and strategy for preparing and authorizing these budgets, which some of them which are very large, and the demands that go with them.
Thank you. As far as the budget, the city has some great department heads. They do a great job managing their departments, and I think that's what we need to let them do, is let them manage their own departments. The job of the mayor is more to manage, if they have a problem, to come to us and we can work with them. So that's exactly what I'm going to do, is work alongside the department heads. If they come asking for money or they come asking for a solution to a problem, then I'll work with them. And like I said, we have wonderful people that run these departments. They're very qualified. They're very capable of doing that job, and I intend to let them do their job. And I'll learn from them in the process. Again, I don't have the experience that the mayor does, but I'll work alongside them and I'll learn as I go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's not the mayor's job to have the department heads tell the mayor what to do. It's the mayor's job to manage the department heads, to set goals and objectives, and I do that. Meet with department heads regularly and say, are you meeting your goals and objectives? To evaluate department heads, to decide which ones get promoted, which ones get pay raises, and sometimes you have to let department heads go, and I've had to do that. Before I ran for mayor, I had 8 years' experience as a city councilor. I had attended a course, I took a course at the Kennedy School of Government in Harvard on executive leadership. I was a practicing attorney and managed my own budget for 30 years, and it still took everything that I had in order to be able to manage the city. I was a city councilor for 8 years, and during that 8 years, I never missed a single budget session. It's a difficult job. Thanks.
Thank you.
Next, Dugan Sherwood.
Mr. Mayor, Haverhill recently has kicked off a citywide master plan. I'd like to ask you about your intentions for the implementation of the master plan, which we're calling Vision 2035. In a recent trip to Providence, a number of us from the Haverhill community learned that their city's master plan is actually written into their zoning ordinances, which essentially is a meaningful way that they put their plan in motion. Is this something Haverhill should consider doing as well? Or are there other measures that you will take as mayor to ensure that it gets off the ground?
Well, yes, it should go into the zoning laws. That's exactly what should happen. The master plan kicked off 8 or 9 months ago. I can't remember exactly when. We've gone all around the city and looked for input. Our goal, as I mentioned earlier, is to figure out a way to grow the city, bring in more commercial growth, and for residential growth, we have to grow, but figure out a way to do it while still keeping the charm and beauty that makes this the city that we all love. How do we do that? The master plan will make recommendations. I think on November 7th, there's a big meeting at the Constantino School. I invite all of you to attend to hear your input. We'll hear some recommendations. After we get further recommendations from the public, the plan then goes to the planning board, and you see some planning board members here. And then after we get all of that input, then it goes before the city council as a zoning ordinance. And by the way, the trip to Providence, I wish I'd made it. I went to the Providence about 20 years ago when I was on the, it's hard to believe it was that long, when I was on the city council. I was absolutely thrilled what Mayor Cianci had done up in Federal Hill, bringing in a restaurant zone. I came back with the idea that we could have a restaurant zone here in the city of Haverhill, and we did. Today, we have $250 million in new investment, 22 great restaurants downtown. It brings people to Haverhill all the time. Now it's time to go the next step and bring in other businesses. Thanks for asking.
Very good. Mr. Trokey, would you like to respond to that?
Yes. As far as having the master plan, if you're going to have a master plan, it should probably be implemented, and it should be rolled into the zoning laws. But as far, I mean, like I said, if you have a master plan, I mean, you've got to implement it at some point. I know that we've had one for quite some time, and not too many things have been implemented on it. So on top of having the master plan, I think that it has to be worked on, utilized.
Okay, thank you. Our next question is from Ms. Hartel Johnson.
Okay, and this question goes to Mr. Trokey. What experience do you bring to the rudimentary job of mayor, including budget review, conducting official meetings, drafting master plans, and negotiating contracts with the city workers?
Thank you. As I said, I'm not a politician. I don't have the experience that the mayor has. But as far as negotiating contracts, I do sit on the e-board for the Haverhill Police Department, for the Police Patrolmen's Association. So I do have experience negotiating on the other side with the city, and I know how difficult it is. I mean, we have a budget, and you have to live within that budget. And I mean, to negotiate, I mean, I know people think that I'm going to come in here and I'm going to give all these big raises to the city unions, and that's not the case. You know, we know the problems that Methuen's having. I don't want to have those same problems here, and I mean, that's my answer. I mean, I've sat on the other side.
Mr. Fiorentini?
We don't want the problems that Methuen has, where they let the fox armed with an AK-47 into the hen house, and that's what happened. So I'm glad to hear that my opponent is not going to do that. His entire campaign is organized, funded by the local public safety unions and some other unions here in the city. And I think that he has to answer one simple question here tonight. When the doors are closed, the shades are down, and the press is out of the room, which side are you going to be on? And I'm very happy to hear your answer tonight. The public knows that for 16 years, when the negotiations are going, I'm on the taxpayer side each day, every day. Thank you.
Okay. Next question from Linda Brown.
Mayor, we can all agree that public safety and education are two of the issues that are really a concern for everyone, no matter if they're young, old, married, unmarried. Can you tell us a little bit how those two major issues in the city have improved under your leadership, and what specific areas do you think require more attention?
Well, they both require more attention. I'm proud of what we've done in education. We were able to renovate the high school and do that within the budget, by the way, for 1/10 the cost that Lowell is paying in order to do its high school. We were able to build a brand-new hunking school, and I'm very, very happy with that. I led the charge. I contributed money, brought my consultant in, went door to door every single weekend. I was a little disappointed to find my opponent didn't vote in that election, but a lot of people did, and we were able to win that election with a 73% margin. But there's more to do in public education. We need to be able to build a new Constantino school within the budget. I'm not satisfied with the improvement we've seen in MCAS scores. I'm very happy with the new superintendent of schools. She's doing a great job, but we've got to continue that progress in public education. We can't rest until every child in our city gets a top-notch education. In public safety, again, we're making progress. I'm happy with the police chief. We've been able to add over 20 police officers over the past 5 years. We've been able to bring back our bike patrols. The police department, including you, Officer Trokey, are doing an excellent, top-notch job, and we need to continue that. Now what we need to do is bring in certified, trained, part-time officers, put them on the street, bring foot patrols back to the neighborhoods, and keep our city safe. The FBI tells us that crime in Haverhill is down, and down fairly dramatically over a decade. But that doesn't mean anything if people don't feel safe with these gangs. I'm very concerned about it. We brought in a nationally recognized company, UTEC, to help us with the gangs. We need to keep the pressure on. We can never give up. We need to keep our city safe. Thank you.
Very good.
Thank you.
Mr. Trokey, if you'd like to respond,
Absolutely.
would you care to have the question restated and not start his time until after that question's restated?
Nope,
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, I'm sorry. Go right
Yeah,
ahead.
this is great. I disagree with the part-time police officers. I believe it's a bad move. It's a very, very dangerous job, and people that aren't as qualified, I think they'll have a very tough time here in Haverhill. He wants to talk about adding 20 police officers, but right now we're down over 20 officers. He didn't hire a single officer from 2008 to 2012. We've actually lost officers in that time, and we've never gained since. We've never been at full complement since that time. Every single unit in our department is depleted.
Time.
That's it?
Right. Okay. And next we'll go to Dugan Sherwood.
Mr. Trokey. Boston is one of the most successful cities in the United States for innovation and small business entrepreneurship, and it's 35 miles from Haverhill. Surrounding cities and towns throughout the Commonwealth are developing strategies and forming partnerships as a way to connect their economies to the thriving Boston industries. How might Boston's successful economy benefit Haverhill, and what would you do to increase Haverhill's leverage in Boston?
So, I mean, we all know Boston's a big city, a great city, is thriving. I mean, they're doing very well. You know, I don't know if our businesses will do as well here as they do there. They got the airports, they got a lot of trains coming in and out, they got a lot of commuters that come from here to go there. Again, I mean, for me, when I talk about these businesses, you know, we're trying to attract businesses to Haverhill. And I just don't, when we're talking about schools that are failing and the streets that aren't safe, I don't see businesses coming here and trying to open up shop here.
Okay.
Well, in fact, businesses are coming here. I'm very proud to have worked with Governor Romney in order to bring Southwick here. Every Brooks Brothers suit made in America, including this one, are made here in Haverhill, Massachusetts, and we're proud of that. We brought Lightspeed Manufacturing here from Methuen by showing how easy it was to do permitting here in the city of Haverhill. We've brought many different businesses here. I'm trying to think of the name of the place that makes hummus in Ward Hill. We kept them here. Cedars, and now they have over 700 employees, our largest employer here in the city. But we need to do more. We absolutely need to work with Boston. One of the keys to Haverhill, well, there are two keys to this. The first is improving train service here in the city of Haverhill. And second, this is our chance. We're affordable. Boston isn't.
We'll have to move on. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Next, we'll go to Ms. Hartel Johnson.
Okay, you can stand, Mr. Fiorentini. This question is going to go to you.
All right?
How do you feel about the proposal to allow undocumented immigrants apply for and receive driver license?
Well, that's up to the legislature, not up to me. I have mixed feelings about it. You know, I got hit on the street, on Emerson Street a while ago, and the person took off, and I always wondered, why are they taking off? I don't want people driving down our streets who are afraid because they don't have a license. I want people to have driver's licenses. On the other hand, we're not a sanctuary city. I don't want us to become one. I think that would be a tremendous mistake. So we'll leave that up to the legislature. There's pros and cons on both sides.
Thank you.
Mr. Trokey, would you like to respond?
I feel the same way. It's up to our legislators, but my personal opinion is no, I don't think that they should be given driver's license.
Okay, next question for Ms. Linda Brown.
Officer Trokey, we know there are a lot of things that can significantly impact our city's finances, and one of them is the outcome of collective bargaining with unions. How would you go about controlling those costs?
How would I go about the cost of collective bargaining?
Well, what the costs from that, as you know, with unions and you have to bargain with, whether it's the salaries and pensions and things like that. How would you go about controlling some of those costs?
I mean, I think that you plan for a certain budget, going into it. I mean, we've been out of contract since July, and I'm sure the mayor has planned for some money for that to be budgeted, and that's where you got to plan ahead. Like, what can we afford as a city to give our unions, and you got to plan accordingly. And the pensions, we pay into the pension system, and that money's going to be there. So, I mean, that's really it. It's like I said, you got to live within that budget. You only have a certain amount of money, and when you go into those contracts, you got to do it reasonably. I think everybody understands that.
Thank you.
It's the most difficult and important thing that a mayor does is being able to control costs. And that requires you to know one word, the word no. I've said that word. Now, I've tried to be fair to everybody. I've signed maybe 100 different union contracts. The laborers union, which represents the city highway workers, has endorsed me, and I've had many, many endorsements over the years from the construction workers, thrilled that we're doing so much growth here in the city of Haverhill. But some of the unions don't like me because I've had to say the word no over the years. I will never give in to unreasonable
Time.
union demands, never.
Thank you. Next question's from Dugan Sherwood.
Mr. Mayor, few cities have the geographical diversity of Haverhill. We have a downtown, we have a river that runs through that downtown. We have classic suburbs as well as inner city neighborhoods. We have working farms. This place has a ski hill. It's part of what makes Haverhill special. And yet I'm struck by how few people outside of Haverhill really understand the city and all it has to offer. As the president of the chamber, this concerns me that we haven't found a way to tell the story of Haverhill effectively. What are your thoughts about what we can be doing to better tell the story of Haverhill and its people in ways that other people might find it, that the quality of life here and the resources in Haverhill fit their needs and wants?
You know, Haverhill's such a great city, and it's always troubled me over the years. First of all, I was president of the Mass Mayors Association, and there's only 45 mayors in Massachusetts. But I talked to other mayors, city managers. I've gone to seminars for years, and people ask me, you know what they ask about Haverhill? Where are you? Yeah. And it bothers me that, you know, we have a bad image here in the city of Haverhill. People think the entire city is an inner city, and they don't see the beautiful outside areas that we have in the city. I was knocking on doors up in the Ayers Village area the other day, and I said, wow, vast majority of people don't know that this exists. They don't know that we have a ski area. They don't know that we have a castle right here in the city of Haverhill. They don't know that we're 30 minutes from Boston, 20 minutes from the beach, 35 minutes to the lakes, 45 minutes to the ski areas. People don't know that. This is our chance. Boston, Somerville, Salem, they're all becoming unaffordable. Now is the time to sell our city. I'm working with the Merrimack Valley Planning Commission to put together a plan in order to be able to do it. This is our chance to sell our city, bring people here, and move our city to the next level. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ferrantini. Mr. Trocchi, would you like to respond?
I'll agree with them that Haverhill has a bad image. I mean, what we see on the news recently is people being shot in our streets, gang-related violence, and you know, some of the issues going on in the school with school threats. And you know, it's not just people outside of Haverhill. We even talk to people within Haverhill. I've had a conversation with Linda not too long ago. We were talking about the different neighborhoods. And you know, the Highlands was the mansions for the shoe factories, and I don't even know much about the other areas of the city in their history. So in order for us to educate other people, I think that we should be educated ourselves. And I think it starts with us.
Very good. Thank you. We're about halfway through our debate process right now, and before we go on to our second round of questioning, which may include also questions directly from the audience, after we had additional questions from our panel, I'd like to take this opportunity to allow, as I had mentioned in the opening, for the candidates to be able to ask each other a question. And at this point in time, I'd like to ask Mr. Trocchi to ask Mr. Fiorentini his question. You'll have 2 minutes to respond.
In the past, you mentioned that more police officers wouldn't have solved the gang issues in the city of Haverhill. So why is that your solution now?
I'm sorry.
In the past, you mentioned more police officers wouldn't have solved the issues. So why is that your solution today?
No, we cannot arrest our way out of this problem. I have added a lot of police, 24 police over the past 7 years, and crime has gone down. But the gang issue really disturbs me. We cannot arrest our way out of it. We have to do other things. That's why I went down to Lowell and I met with the UTEC program, a nationally recognized program to deal with gang leaders and get them out of the gangs. And I'm proud I was able to work with our legislature, Representative Vargas, with Lieutenant Governor Polito. I have a lot of ties in both parties in order to get a grant to bring the UTEC program here. I'm absolutely thrilled with that. I started a gang task force where I listened to people in the gangs, in the schools, educators, in order to be able to hear what needed to be done. I've worked with a great guy named Jesus Ruiz, who has started the Back to the Streets ministry, taken 24 kids in gangs and gotten them jobs. I've worked with the UTEC program. Absolutely, positively, more needs to be done. I believe I have the skill and experience in order to be able to do it. We can never rest until these gangs, which by the way, are a spillover from a neighboring city, until these gangs are out of the city of Haverhill. We're gonna keep working on it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Fiorentini, you have a question for Patrolman Trokey.
I do. Patrolman Prokey, you've indicated you'd like more money, things that we've all liked to do. More money for police, more money for fire, lower class sizes, a new sports complex with artificial turf fields, more money for infrastructure, more money for pay raises, money for the library. We'd all like to do these things. Lower class sizes means the new school at a cost of about $68 million and $1.7 million a year for teachers. A new sports complex is $6 to $8 million. More police and fire, it's hard to say even give an exact number, but about $3 million a year, and we haven't even got to the infrastructure. The total's about $79 million. Do you plan on paying for this with a Prop 2.5 override? And how much do you think taxes will have to go up? I think it'll be the biggest increase in our history. Do you really think voters will vote to pay for that?
Thank you for the question. So, again, I'm running on education. Our schools are completely underfunded. Tillman School was in the bottom 1% of the rankings. So how do I plan on doing it? Well, there's use of grants for staffing levels. If there's staffing grants available, you've denied them for the fire department. What I'll do is I'll audit the funds. I'll speak with the department heads, and what we'll do is we'll evaluate where our money's being spent and see if it's being spent wisely. My whole thing, again, I'm going back, is, I mean, I'm not going to prioritize money over saving lives. The response time in some areas of the city are over 10 minutes. That's a long time if you're choking, if you're not breathing. That's unacceptable. You know, there was a dumpster that hit the bridge over in Rocks Village. And it took me over 6 minutes to get there. And on my way there, I'm thinking, you know, there's a school right here. If there was ever a problem, 6 minutes is a long time for me to get to that school. If we wanted to put it in perspective, the Parkland shooting happened in 6 minutes and 17 kids were dead. So we need to think about that, not just about spending money, but prioritizing safety over money.
Okay, thank you very much. At this point, I'll turn back to the panel to see if they're prepared for an additional series of questions.
Yes.
Okay. And I think we left off with yourself.
So that would
Hartel,
be,
correct?
yes, that would be
Okay.
me.
Thank
And this
you very-
question will be going to Mr. Trokey.
Very good.
You have stated that you do not support marijuana dispensary in the city, yet in 2016, over 16,000 residents in Haverhill voted for the legislation of recreational marijuana, while just over 13,000 voted against it. In June, the city council voted 7-1, which 7-1 on seven zone for recreational marijuana businesses. Do you plan on implementing ways to oppose the apparent majority of the legislation of recreational marijuana?
I think you said that I opposed the marijuana?
You stated, yes, you stated
No,
that you do
it's-
not support it.
No, that's incorrect. On my website, I think it very clearly says I do support the marijuana dispensaries.
Okay. Do you plan on implementing ways to oppose? Because I'm just reading what was.
No, I mean, again, I'm not opposed
Okay.
to the dispensary, so, I think that'll bring a lot of revenue to the city.
Okay.
I know people aren't happy with the location of them, and, you know, that's not something that any of us, that I know of, I don't believe that the mayor even implemented, but that was done through the city council. They voted on it, they zoned it, and the voters spoke.
Okay.
And like I said, I support it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Trocchi. Mr. Fiorentini?
Said in an answer to a previous question, we can't put public safety ahead of taxes. And so absolutely though, and I support now having marijuana dispensaries here. I was opposed to the legalization of marijuana. I think we've made a mistake. However, the voters have spoken. This is a democracy. It's not my idea, it's theirs, and I believe we have to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson? No, excuse me.
That's okay.
Ms. Brown?
Mayor Fiorentini, in speaking with people around town, I was down at the Council of Aging, speaking with some of our seniors, and being online and seeing some of the things that are really important to people. One of the things that they're having a really hard time with is paying rent. The rents have skyrocketed, not just in
Absolutely.
Haverhill, but, you know, in our surrounding towns. And it's just a really major concern for our residents. What are your plans to boost affordable housing here in Haverhill? I know we have a lot downtown, a lot of new apartments have been put downtown, but obviously the need is greater.
When I go out and talk to people, particularly in the inner city, this is their number one concern, that they can no longer afford to live here. In a certain way, it's caused by our success because people are flocking here now. But in a certain way, it's caused by a lack of housing. Not just a lack of affordable housing, a lack of housing, period. In my last inaugural address, I was sworn in by Lieutenant Governor Karen Polito, because although I'm a Democrat, I'm a big supporter of Governor Baker's housing choice law to allow communities to be able to build more housing, still keep the beautiful areas of the city. This is what we need to do. This is one of the challenges of our master plan, and this will be the challenge of whoever is lucky enough to win the mayor's race. We have to allow people to move to our city, supply and demand. Now, we're going to have a great opportunity with the federal opportunity zones to try to bring some more investment in the core part of our city. This will keep those areas safe, and it'll allow more investment, and hopefully supply and demand will bring house prices down. Prices went down in Boston, rent prices, for the first time in a long time because they built so much. That's what we need to do, because I really, really feel for these folks. My heart goes out to them every time I talk. They can't afford to live here anymore.
Absolutely, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Trocchi, would you like to respond?
I agree. The rent's a big issue when we talk to people. And we even have some, you go to like Presidential Gardens and Hadley West and those areas, and, there's a 5-year waiting list. And I agree more has to be done to help that. And I think with our growth, I would hope that, the money would go towards keeping our city safe and towards our education.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Sherwood?
Yes. Mr. Trocchi? Yes. Our U.S. Representative Lori Trahan has made improvements of the Merrimack River a key part of her platform. State Senator Dinah DeZoglo has made similar overtures at the state level. Where does the river live among your priorities for Haverhill, and what would you plan to do to take advantage of the fact that we have 2 representatives at the state and federal level with the river among their chief priorities?
The river is one of our greatest assets, and I remember growing up, and the Red Slavitt had his riverboat going through there, and the stories that he told. And I know one of the things that they've done is the Clean River Project, and I believe you gave them about $20,000, if I'm correct, and that's something that I think that we should keep working on. And I think I give the mayor a lot of credit for supporting that. Other cities did not do that, that have the river access. So I'm on board with supporting them and continuing that relationship.
Thank you. Mr. Fiorentini?
Thank you so much. The river is our greatest asset. It wasn't always. I grew up in Riverside near the river, and on a hot summer day, my mother would close the blinds, bring on the storm shutters so that we wouldn't see or smell the river. But All of that changed with the implementation of the Clean Water Act in 1971. We've instituted a new Waterfront Zoning Act in order to say to developers, look, the river belongs to all of us, not just to people lucky enough to own property. If you want to build near the river, you have to give us something, a walkway along the river, a park. My goal is a series of walkways and parks all along the river, our own emerald necklace
Time.
here in the city of Haverhill.
Thank you very much. Next question is from Ms. Hartel Johnson.
Okay, this question is going to go to Mr. Forentini. Our pupil expenditure for the public education has been steadily increasing over the past 10 years, yet we still spend far less than many of our other neighboring cities. How do you plan on not only making sure that our per pupil spending continue to increase, but is that going to be aligned more closely with other cities and state?
Well, the state sets a limit on how much we can afford to pay, and that's called the net school spending, or foundation minimum. And when I took office, we had a long and sad tradition that we paid the minimum of what the state authorized us to pay. And again, the state looked at our ability to pay, not just what other cities were paying. Today, we pay $5 million more than the state says we're able to pay with the net school spending minimum. Over the last 4 years, we've dramatically increased public education spending at close to $4 million a year. Now, I personally think it's a mistake to get into a contest to see how much you can spend. We spend more per pupil in North Andover, but we spend less per pupil in Lawrence. Does that really matter? What matters is how well our students do. The contest shouldn't be how much we can spend, but how well we can do. I'm happy with the progress. MCAS scores are up this year. The Tilton School was one of the most improved schools in the state, but we have more to do. I'll never be satisfied till every child in every school gets a top-flight education here in Haverhill.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Trokey.
Thank you. As far as the MCAS, over 60% of our students aren't proficient in math and English and language arts. And that's a fact, and that's on the DESE website. The Tilton, like I had mentioned, is in the bottom 1% of schools. It made some great progress. They got a massive grant. When the grant ran out, we devoted money towards the city. They kept that program running, and they've had great improvement. So as far as the spending, I mean, it shows you that if we spend the money and we invest in our children, you're going to get results.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Linda Brown.
Officer Trokey, we know as a lot of eastern cities, we have a lot of old cities, but with that comes a lot of aging infrastructure, pipes and bridges and things like that. What do you see as the most pressing need, or needs, I should say, for infrastructure or capital projects in our city, and why?
Again, it's one of my main issues that I'm running on, and I think the infrastructure in our city has been neglected over the past 16 years. The school buildings, those didn't happen overnight. They didn't just happen in the 16 years that he's been mayor, but it hasn't improved either. When you look at the firehouses, and people have seen the pictures, they're filled with mold and mildew. The windows are being held up with kitchen utensils and towels. We have sewage going into the Merrimack River. That's going to have to be addressed at some point. As far as our infrastructure too, the police department put on a brand new roof not too long ago, and the mayor decided to put solar panels on them, and they've caused nothing but problems. This fallen snow, the damage in some of our equipment. So, talking with people, they're gonna have to build something, another structure to prevent the snow from falling onto a generator. It's gonna have to prevent the snow from falling onto our cruisers and onto people going in and out of the building. And that's another cost that we're gonna have to incur. Our animal control office is filled with it's rat infestation and there's water damage. They were looking to rebuild the building, and the mayor stalled on it, and now the price is going up again. So at some point, we're gonna have to pay for that, and as we keep waiting, the price is gonna keep going up. So, you know, at some point, we've got to act on these issues.
Thank you.
Absolutely, I stalled on the dog pound, the animal control shelter. The proposal given to me was to spend $2 million to build a new animal control shelter, the most expensive animal control shelter per square foot in the entire state. I said, no, I'm not gonna do it, come back with a better proposal, and then we'll do it. The most important thing in infrastructure is to rebuild our schools. That's why we've spent $110 million in order to rebuild our schools. $60 million for the high school, $60 million for the Hunking School, $30 million in order to redo our high school, and $20 million to put new doors, new windows, new furnaces, and new roofs on the rest of the schools.
Time.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Mr. Fiorentini. Dugan Sherwood.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question for you related to opportunity zones. This is a relatively new investment option that's designed to push capital into zip codes that need it. We have 2 opportunity zones in Haverhill, essentially abutting the downtown area. This is a new investment tool, and it hasn't been friendly tested, but there's been very little activity in the Haverhill market, and I'd like to know what the city can do to help stimulate some of the interest using this new tool in these areas of Haverhill that particularly need it.
It's a great question. This is our chance, as I mentioned earlier, to take advantage, just as we did 16 years ago, of the new brownfields laws, to take advantage of the new opportunity zone laws. I've met with some investors recently who have expressed some interest in the Mount Washington area, and we're interested, depending on what they do. We want it to be good for the neighborhood. Now what we need to do next is exactly what we did 16 years ago. Have a developers conference, bring people to our city. That's how the Tregorth building downtown got redeveloped. They saw the developers conference. That's how we were able to do Hamel Mills Lodge. Bring people to the Mount Washington area, bring them to the Acre, bring them to the Highlands area, the area along the river here, and say, this is your chance to take advantage of the new opportunity zone, invest in our city, and bring us to the next level.
Thank you. Mr. Trocchi, would you like to respond to that question?
No, thank you.
Okay. Next, we'll go to Hartel Johnson.
Okay, Mr. Trocchi, this will be an easy one. Do you support ward council seats?
I do. I believe that every area of the city has to be represented. I believe I'm the only one from the Acre neighborhood that is run for any office, and I believe that everybody should have a say. And I think people have proven in other cities and towns that when you go to that system, that they're properly represented. When there's a problem, they go to somebody that knows that area. It's not just going to where somebody lives, all the city councils live in one neighborhood. And it's been productive, and I most certainly support that.
Thank you.
We agree on this one.
Yeah.
Wood councilors would not only give people in every neighborhood of the city an opportunity to be represented, but I consider it a pothole fixing program. People now don't know who to call. We have a great 311 program, but people don't know their councilors. People in the inner part of the city, they might know me, they might not. But they will know their ward councilor, and they will be able to use this when they have a problem to take care of it. I support it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
With there being only about 7 or 8 minutes left, I'd like to take the opportunity, with the permission of the panel, to ask a few questions that have been submitted by the audience. And these questions I would like to have go to both candidates. Okay? And that is, Mr. Trocchi, I'll start with you.
Okay.
With the likely passage of the Student Opportunity Act and about $20 million in additional state education funding coming to Haverhill students when fully phased in, how will you engage parents, educators, and students in the conversation about how to spend that money to spend the benefit to the benefit of the Haverhill students?
Thank you. I mean, it's a lot of money if it passes, and we hope that it does pass. And, you know, I think that, again, it goes back to the school committee, it goes back to the superintendent, it goes back to the union, and talking to them and seeing what they need from us. And again, I'm no expert on education, and, I'm open, I work with everybody, and I'd be willing to listen to see what their needs are. Like I said, it's a lot of money going towards the school, but I like to see it go towards more teachers and smaller class sizes. And, and I'm sure there's other issues that need to be addressed, and that's something that I'll listen to and work with everybody.
Very good. Mr. Fiorentino.
Well, we have lowered class size. Class size this year is around 24 or 26, I can't remember the exact number, kids. Where you want the lowest class sizes in K through 3. That's where you want the most nurturing teachers, and that's where study after study has shown that lower class size works. It's very mixed on the studies after 3, and certainly up until high school. Very mixed on whether lowering class sizes by a couple of kids really does anything. We are going to get extra money from the state. That's where the money needs to go. And we need to target things that we know works. We know that we need to do a better job with literacy. We have improved that, but a better job on literacy on K through 3. We know that extended learning time works, and it isn't always popular. But last year, we implemented extended learning time at the Tilton School, at the schools, mandatory summer school for kids that failed. Instead of moving them on to the next grade, we said you had to go to summer school. It worked. Study after study after study has shown that extended learning time works. So it's all nice and good to say we're going to listen to everybody. Great ideas will filter up. But sometimes you need leadership from the top. That's what I intend to do. Move our city forward, better education.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Fiorentini, I'd like to ask you this next question.
Sure.
And that is, with international discussion at an all-time high relative to global warming, what initiatives would you employ to lessen Haverhill's carbon footprint?
More trees. We've planted 1,000 trees in the city of Haverhill during my administration. We're going to plant 500 trees between this fall and the coming spring. It's a great start. And more trees, by the way. This year we will be paving more streets, fixing more sidewalks, and planting more trees than at any time in our recent history. But we need to do more. I'm going to be kicking off a plan to plant 1,000 trees, and I'm going to ask every person in the city to contribute money. We're going to try to raise this privately. We're going to have GoFundMe pages, private raises. I want to plant 1,000 more trees within the next couple of years. That's the number one thing cities can do, and that's what we should do.
Thank you. Mr. Trokey.
I guess I'd start by not cutting down the trees that we weren't supposed to. But, I mean, we want to talk about global warming, but I want to talk about the issues that are impacting Haverhill right now. That's education and public safety, so, all right?
Okay. Next question. If you had a wish list for the $12 million held in reserve, what specifically would it be spent on? Mr. Trokey.
My number one goal would be education. I'd like to see more money towards education. Again, like I said, over 60% of our students are performing well with that MCAS test. And I agree 100% with the K through 3rd grade with having small class sizes put there. But education, without a doubt, would be where that money would go. Give the teachers the support that they need.
Okay. Mr. Fiorentini.
It's no 12 million, it was 12.8 actually, $1 million in reserve. I'll talk about that in a minute. But the number one thing that we did to improve education was to build a new hunking school. I'm proud of my role. I'm proud of the fact that some of the leaders of Haverhill for Hunking had endorsed me and put out new videos. I'm proud that I went door to door, and Officer Trokey, I'm disappointed that you didn't bother to vote in that election. You should have. That's the number one thing you can do to improve public education. There is no $12.8 million. We took half of that money and we put it into the budget to do the things that we all want to do. We added more police officers. We've added in the last couple of years a gang unit. We added a traffic unit. And this year we're taking 4 policemen out of the station, taking them off answering the phones, bringing in civilian dispatch, and putting them back on the street. We gave education one of the largest boosts in the state, and we did that by taking some of that $12 million. We use some of it to fix our roads and our sidewalks. As I mentioned, we're going to be paving more streets and fixing more sidewalks than at any time in our history. And we took some of it and we moved it forward to next year to keep it in reserve. Spending down our reserves, eliminating our rainy day fund would be the worst thing we could ever do in this city. That's how we got into this mess in the first place. I will never let us go back.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes this 2019 mayoral debate for the city of Haverhill. I'd like to thank the participants, Police Patrolman Daniel Trokey, along with incumbent Mayor James J. Fiorentini, along with our panel of guests that have posed questions to our candidates, Ms. Linda Brown, Mr. Dugan Sherwood, and Ms. Hartel Johnson. I would like to say our sincerest thanks to the candidates, the panelists, the timekeepers, who's Tita Antonopoulos, thank you very much, and the tonight's sponsor, which is Welcome to Haverhill. And for you, I thank you for watching and participating in tonight's debate. At the present time, we will now have each candidate give their 1-minute summation and closing comment. At this point, we had Mr. Fiorentini do his opening statement first, so we'll have Mr. Trokey do his closing statement
Thank
first.
you. Again, I'm Jan Trokey. I'm running on education, public safety, and infrastructure. If you want safer streets and better education, then I think you'll want to vote for me on November 5th. If you want longer response times and less officers on the street, then you may want to vote for the incumbent. I appreciate everybody that listened today, everybody listening at home, everybody here in the audience, and I appreciate your time today in setting this up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Officer
Fiorentini.
Trokey. Tonight, our city's come so far, but we're just getting started. We've gone from the greatest deficit in state history to our greatest surplus. We've gone from a high school slated to be unaccredited to a renovated high school and a brand-new hunking school. We've gone from a downtown that was deserted to over $250 million in new investment. Now's the time to cast aside the negativity that's held us back for so long and move the city forward to the next level. Let's finish the work we started of revitalizing our parks, our playgrounds, our streets, and our sidewalks. Let's finish the work we started by building a new or renovated Constantino School. Let's finish the work we started when we hired 20 more police officers to bring in certified part-time officers to do foot patrols in our neighborhoods and keep us safe. And let's unite to build a commercial tax base so that this city remains affordable. We're uniquely positioned to take advantage of new laws to bring in commercial tax dollars and keep the city moving forward. We've done a lot, but we're just getting started. I humbly ask for your vote on November 5th to keep this great city moving forward. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. A special thank you to the volunteers, staff, and crew of HC Media and HCTV 22 and 9 for bringing this all to you. I'm Frank Novak from the studios and broadcast center from Harbor Place in beautiful downtown Haverhill, saying thanks very much for watching, and remember to vote on Election Day, November 5th. Pass it on. Good night, everybody.